Hi guys, welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to start on the transmission swap on the AT-1 MX. We're going to go from, you have to remember that this was originally an AT-1, which was the Enduro model, which had the wide ratio transmission. We're going to swap it over to what the MX came with from the factory, which was the close ratio. There's most of these gears, I really didn't have any trouble finding them out there. They're out there at a pretty reasonable price. There's some things that I can tell you not to do, and I'll explain that as I go along. But for the most part, if you get all the 265 prefix numbers, you'll have the right gears as long as you order the right ones. Just the prefix is what I'm talking about at the time, because I've tried some that you order brand new from Yamaha, and those come with a different prefix. I think it's generally 316. It's 315. I'm sorry. But anyhow, I'll show you the differences when I get to it. The big difference on the close ratio is there's a smaller space between each gears, so it's going to be easier for you to stay up on the pipe, especially on a smaller engine like a 125. Now, what that will do, in most cases, it raises the gear ratio a little bit. Not a lot, but some. Otherwise, it might be a little bit harder to start out in first gear, but you compensate with that by changing your secondary ratio. That would be your sprockets. So generally what I do is, that's what I do, is I'll change to the close ratio, and then I'll compensate by changing my sprockets to get so you don't have to slip the clutch or something a lot to get going, and to try to keep your top speed primarily where it was before. You do all that with your sprockets. Anyhow, today we're going to talk transmissions, so let me get you overhead here and we'll start this procedure for changing it over from wide ratio to close ratio. Okay guys, just to let you know that I've done one of these swaps. I'm pretty sure I filmed it. I think I did it on the CT1. Some of those bikes actually came with close ratio. In the CT1s, I believe, if you look at the serial number on the engine, it would start with a 200, I think, and that denotes that it's close ratio. Now, whether it got changed somewhere along the way, I don't know, but you could buy them, and I believe the DT1 and the RT1 you could too, and in either ratio. But today we're covering the AT1, and as far as I know, the only way to get the close ratio in the 125, the AT1, was to buy the MX or in the AT2M. Anyhow, there's a lot of differences in some of the model numbers and whatnot. But here is the wide ratio right here out of the engine that we're working on, and these four components are the parts that you're going to need to swap it over on the pinion. This is called the pinion, and this is the one that the clutch bolts onto right here. What they call wheel gears is this cluster here. This is the one that the countershaft sprocket bolts to. Talk about it here in a minute. But for right now, we're going to go from on the pinion shaft. We're going to change out the shaft. It's going to go from a 11 to a 12 tooth right here, and then you're going to change out your second gear, this one here. It's going to be it's going to go from 15 to 16, and your fifth gear, which will go from 25 to 23, and your fourth gear, which goes from 23 to 22. Third gear remains the same on the pinion. And I see that I've got a bad tooth here on this is my third, and I've got a couple bad ones, I believe, if I remember right on here. Yeah, 2 or 3. So I'm going to be swapping that one out for a different one, but it's the same. It's going to be the same as the wide ratio. But these 4 components, the shaft, which is your first gear, second, fifth, and fourth. Those are the ones that are going to be changed out on the pinion shaft. And in order to do that, this second gear is pressed on, so you're going to need a press and you're going to need a bearing puller to remove that. Everything else is snap rings, so you can just change those out very easily. But you've got to get the second one off, and when you put it back on, you have to have a particular gap between fifth and first, and the book tells me to set that at 0.1 millimeter, which equates to 0.004 thousandths imperial, and that measurement will be between the 2 gears here, just so there's enough so that the fifth gear will spin, and do so after it heats up. So they're considering 4 thousandths to be good enough for that. Now, something that I did on the other one was I could not find the proper second gear, and I went to the Yamaha IPB on Rocky Mountain, I think it was, and they actually showed it brand new. You could buy it, and I've still got some of them, and here it is. And here's the difference. You can readily tell that they're thicker. Now that doesn't mean the whole thing is thicker. Okay, if you measure this one, I'm at 15.01 millimeters, and on this one it's 14.01 millimeters. So there is quite a bit of difference there. I just really prefer imperial. It makes a little more sense to me. 0.591 to 0.592, or 0.552, I'm sorry. So there is some difference, and what I found out when I got the thing pressed on, that it was not going to work. It was actually going to impede, well, worse than that, on this, on the shaft, right here where it goes in, it was going to hit right here, and it was going to chew the case up. So what I did was, while I still had it, I didn't pull it back off. I just put it in the lathe, and I trimmed down part of the gear on the grinder. These are extremely hard. They will not, you cannot cut them with a lathe, not even a carbide tool. So I had to use a tool post grinder and grind down to get this step in here. And that kept with the step, because see, this piece here goes towards fifth gear. It would go like this. That keeps you away from it. And on this one, it's kind of the same way. If you look at one side of the tooth here, you've got more of a angle than on the other side. You want the one with the most angle toward the fifth. So what I did was I ended up grinding this down to get this here, and then removed the difference that whatever it was here, and then reground the angle on this side of the gear. It was a lot of work that I had to go through, and all I had to do was find out that I should have stayed out of the IPB in the Yamaha book and stayed with my my old books that gave me the 265 part numbers, and I would have had everything that I needed, and it would have been proper. So this gear, you don't need that. Evidently they still use it on something late model because you can buy it from Yamaha. So anyhow, we'll get rid of that. We've got all the right gears now, and we should not have any issues putting this together. A lot of these gears have been around a long time out there. They're usually in this type of packing, but over the years they've been thrown around and moved around so much that they've worn through. So in your quest for these, if you're looking for them, don't be surprised you're going to find some rusty ones. So far I have not found any rusty gears that were bad enough to cause a problem. I have found some kick idler gears that goes on way out here. I found some of those that were pretty bad, but they should still work. You just clean them up in some vapor rust or something. Anyhow, enough on the pinion. Let's move on to the wheel gear. And that is this piece. And on this one, you're going to change out 3 gears. And you say, Dale, how come you're not changing out 4 gears on this one like you did on this one? Remember, we had the shaft that had a gear on it. That's first. Well, on this group, there's actually 2 of these gears that are going to remain the same. Third remains the same on both. Third gear remains the same on the pinion shaft and on the wheel shaft. But also, you're going to keep second on this one. Second is the same. The differences, again, okay, we're looking at this is second right here, and we're going to go from let's see, no, on the second stays the same. On third, it stays the same. So we're going to change out fourth, which will be 20, from a 23 to a 24. And fifth, let's see here. Fifth is going from a 20 to a 22, and first will go from a 35 to a 34. So those are the only 3 that are going to change right here. And everything on this shaft is replaceable with a snap ring. So all you got to do is have a snap ring plier to do this. Now there's some differences on some of these shafts. It shouldn't make a difference as far as how they go together. It's just that some of the shafts have this, it's machined on washer here at the end. This one right here by the counter shaft sprocket where it would go on, It's actually machined on this one, and if you look at this one, there is a washer there. It's the same thickness, it's just a different manufacturing process, and they just deemed somewhere along the way it necessary to do that. It doesn't change anything as far as I know. This one does have a place for a snap ring here, but it is not used. This washer is just pushed straight down here, and then it basically takes up the room where that snap ring groove is. And there's a proper way to put this on. There's a beveled edge, and it goes on the back, and that goes down. If you put it on the other way, you can end up with it chewing a little bit on your gear here. It probably wouldn't cause a major issue, but it would cause a lot of filings, and you don't want that. So anyway, I think I'm going to use the new style, this one here. I just kind of prefer it because the fewer things that can fall off while you're putting something together is better in my opinion. So I've got both. I'm going to use the one that's molded on, that's machined on it. Okay, I think that pretty well describes this. So at this point, I'm going to take the pinion shaft over to the press, and we're going to press off second gear here. Okay, our prep on this is to get our bearing and gear separator on here, and you want to make sure that this is snugged up pretty tight. You know, it fits between the two gears, and if it's not tight, it could slip and just cause, damage to the gear or whatever. So snug it up, that should be good. And now we're going to take it over there and press it off. Okay guys, I've got it over here at the press, and let me show you what I've got. I've got this set up where I've got a couple of bars here to press against, and when I'm setting this down in here, I want to try to make sure that I don't touch this gear. It's my widest one, so you just want to make sure you're not interfering with anything, because it's going to push everything down. And if it's contacting something like that, it very well could break it. And even though I don't think we're using that gear, we still don't want to break it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to press against that, and actually I think what I'm going to do is, I hate to do that because you won't be able to see it. I think we'll be okay. I'm just going to use this pin here to press against it, and let me get the ram down here. I think I'm going to have to move the camera a little bit. Get it out of the way. Let me center it up just a little bit. Okay. I may have to redo things here because I may run out of travel. We'll see. Let me try to get you a little closer if I can. Here we go. Now, you want to make sure that you hold on to the shaft underneath, because that's going to drop if you don't. That one actually came off there real easy. I'm surprised. I think I'm going to have to find something a little smaller. There we go. Yeah, the last one I did really popped when I took it apart. So this one is a little bit less on the tight side. Okay, I'll take you back over to the bench and we'll take a look at this. Okay, I've got to take another one off to get the third gear that I need. This one here is a better gear. So I'm going to go over and press this one off too. So you get to see two of them. Maybe this one here will be a little tighter. They usually pop pretty good. That last one just was pretty uneventful. Makes me think that it probably really wasn't all that good to start with. Maybe it could have spun if you really got on it. All right, we'll go back over there. Okay, let's see what this one does. Again, make sure you hold it and make sure you're not hitting any of the other gears. This one's going to go. Yeah. That's more like it. I could just tell by the amount of pressure. That other one just was not giving me the pressure I thought it needed. All right, back over to the bench. Okay, these are both of them that I just pressed these gears off of. This was the first one. It really doesn't matter which one. I just need the third gear. See, this is the damaged one. This one's in good shape here. I'm going to clean all these up. But right now I'm just going to disassemble it. This one here I'm going to press. I'm going to put it out. I'll use this one. Doesn't really matter because I'm just using a couple gears off this shaft. We're going to replace the shaft. So let's try to keep everything in order here. And we've got our second. And that'll be our second gear here. And then our fifth, and that's our new fifth, and then our third, that's the one we want to keep, and then we've got a snap ring here on our fourth. So we'll just go in here and see if we can get that removed. I always try to keep this stuff laid out so that I know exactly where it is. There's a spacer on or a washer on this too, so make sure you keep that. That's going to go on, and then your fourth and your fourth. Okay guys, we're back over at the bench. This is the one we just disassembled, except for the third gear, which I'm using in this one, in the new one. The new shaft. Here again, we're going from 11 to 12 teeth on the first gear. The first one that's going to go on there, the first gear that's going to go on is the fourth. I'm just going to put a little oil on here. There's plenty of room to do all this after you get it together, actually, but I just prefer to put a little on now just to make sure everything is as it should be. Now your cogs are going to go together on these two. These are, I call this type pins. Pins go in holes and cogs go to cogs. So your fourth goes on, and you notice how it goes up against this with the beveled gear. Now granted, the other one didn't have that, but it's going to be the same way when you get to the second. I'll show you here in just a minute. Okay, so we've got our spacer that goes on, and our snap ring. There it goes. Okay. Sounded like it was down. It rotates like it's down, so it must be down. Okay, here again, cog to cog. And this is the only one on this shaft, on what they call the pinion shaft, that it stays the same. It's third gear. Looks like it should be. And then we go to our new fifth, and we're going pin to hole, just like this. And at that point, we're ready to press these on. Do this cleaning, and here again, you see the larger bevel. That's going to go towards the gear. That way you've got more gear contact out here for your gear to match up with your other gear. So that's how we're gonna, I'm just gonna give it a little bit of oil. You know, these things should fit tight enough that it's going to hold on for, or going to hold it for sure, and it's probably in the process of pressing this on, it's just going to push the oil in front of it anyway. But that's what we're going to put it on there anyway, just to make sure. I just wanted to look, and wanted to share this with you too. A quick measurement here, it would be better done with a micrometer, but just a quick measurement is saying this is 609, 0.609, and the shaft is 0.612 and a half, oh, 11 and a half. Depends on how hard you hold it. Let's split the difference, 612. 612 and 6, what was it? 6.9. So it's got 3/1000 interference fit. So that's pretty tight for something like that. So it should go on pretty hard. And in doing so, it's going to be hard to get our gap because it's going to want to snap as the press is pressing it on. It's going to pop. So we've got to be cautious of that and watch our measurement. So let me get you back over to the press and we'll put this on. Just decided, I think the last time I did this I used a socket, and this time I'm going to cut off a regular piece of pipe here, and we're just going to make it to fit. I prefer having that than having a socket that may be a little too short on the inside and come in contact with the shaft. So this way we'll make sure that we're okay in that department. Just take a minute here to cut one down. Just deburr it a little bit. And same on the inside, just so we don't have something causing an issue there. I better get some on the other end too. That way it's good and flat on both ends. It'll just press easier that way. Okay, see you back at the press. Okay, on the back at the press, I just want to show you that I'm putting a piece of aluminum here at the bottom to protect the threads here, because I'm going to press against that. And then back up at the top, this pusher I just made will go right over the shaft, so we know that it's big enough. And we're getting our gear on properly with the biggest bevel at the bottom toward fifth gear. And we're just going to line our pusher up. And start down with it. Okay, got off just a little bit there. We want to keep it square. Okay, proper orientation. Everything looks good. And looks like you got a good view of it there. Now that's not going to work there. Oops, I'm going to have to get a different light. This one's out. Yeah, how's that? Okay, let's give her a push here. It's tight. Okay, we want to start getting our measurement. Well, I think that's just about it. Just a little more. I almost hate to do it because I'm afraid it'll overdo it. I'm going to do it by hand. Yeah, that overdid it. I'm going to have to pull it a little bit. I was afraid of that. Okay guys, I just pulled it a little bit like I did when I took the other one off. And I'm measuring about 8 thousandths right now, and we want 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to just smack the top here a little bit with a hammer to see if I can just move it a couple of thousandths. I think that's doing it. Yep, I believe we're good. Okay guys, back over at the bench, and we've got our shaft all put together, and we've got the right amount of clearance between the second and fifth, and everything is put together as it should be. And I just wanted to check to make sure that we're okay where the shaft goes in the, I know it's going to be almost impossible for you to see that, but what I'm checking for is to make sure that this doesn't touch the bearing down here, and it looks to be good. So we've got the, actually what it is this piece, this raised piece right here does contact this bearing surface right there. And that's what keeps it from going any further. But the important thing is that you're not hitting the gear on the case. So we're good. Now we're going to concentrate on the other shaft. All right guys, we'll start on the wheel shaft now. I call this the counter shaft, but they're calling it the wheel shaft. This one is a lot more straightforward. I mean, the other one's straightforward, but this one's just easier because you can do everything with a tool instead of a press. And we've got a snap ring down here. Get your washer on there. And we've got another one. And then another one. And there's a shim on that one too. And there's our bare shaft. Now I'm going to take a moment here and clean up all the components I'm going to reuse, and then we'll put it back together. Okay guys, we're going to do the main shaft here, or what they're calling the wheel shaft. This is the end where the clutch fits. No, I'm sorry, it's not either. This is the end that the countershaft sprocket goes on. The other shaft has got the clutch on it. Okay, first thing you want to do is to make sure you've got the, you put your first washer on and your first clip on this one. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about these. There's two different shafts, and I had to do a little bit more investigation on this to see which one is which. This is the older shaft. This is the, I guess would be 69 to 71. And I started out, I said I was going to use this with the integral washer made on it. Well, it turns out that the fifth slider here does not work with the one that I have for the close ratio will not enter these holes on the second gear. So I did some looking around, and I looked at this shaft again, and it does on this one. These two go together. If you're doing these, you need to know which model you got. And basically it's whether or not you have the integral washer. See, this one here, you have a washer that goes on it. And the other one, it's machined on. This is the later model one. From what I can tell, it's 72 and up. And I don't know whether it goes into the DT-125 class or not. Some of that stuff is very similar, I hear. I have not been into one of them, so I couldn't tell you. But that is the difference. And when you're ordering the fifth gear, I'm sure that's the fifth gear. Let's see. Yeah, the fifth wheel gear. That one is different depending on what shaft. All the rest of them are the same. So you've got to know that. The ones that I bought will not fit. So in order to do this and finish it up, I've got to use the older shaft. And evidently the one that I did on the CT1 that I'm still working on was this type shaft, because I used the same part number fifth gear slider on it. I had to go back and watch the video again to make sure that it was, and it is. So luckily I won't be pulling that back apart for that anyhow. Okay, so now that we've got that over, the one with the integral shaft, or the integral washer, is the later model. And you require a different part number, fifth slider, 22 tooth for your close ratio than you do on the older one. So this one, I put this piece on last because it just keeps falling off. So first thing you do is you put a washer on, and then your snap ring, then your fifth gear slider, and that's going to go into this one right here. And you'll find out if you got the wrong one, because it will go in here, but it'll lodge halfway across. You see where the holes are kind of, now they come back to a point in the center. This is how it should work. And if you've got the other type in there, it will not work right. So that one gear is different from everything else. Okay, so we've got this in. Now we take the next snap ring, I said I wasn't going to put that in because because it kept falling off, and I did it anyway. All right, so then we've got a snap ring that goes in next. Kind of got to get it pushed past there. Okay, it goes into that groove. Make sure it snaps in. Okay, and once you get that in, then you've got a washer. Now we'll go on here. And then your third gear. Oops, I had the washer there. Good thing I saw it. And then this one will fit into that one. That's the one I had to move from the other one, I think. No, that was on the other shaft, I'm sorry. Okay, once you get that in, then you've got a washer. Washer goes first, and then the snap ring. And we get that all snapped in. Then your fourth gear, and that's going to go this way. And then your first gear, and that's going to go here. And these two mesh good. And then you've got a washer and a small snap ring. Okay, just like that. Then, let's put this one on. This is your second. Slides on. And there is a tip, actually a service thing on this, and I told you about it earlier. They say that you have a tapered ID on one side. I don't see it on either one of these sides on the ID. But they say if you have the tapered ID, it goes toward the bearing this way. So otherwise you want it to be flat going up against the gear. And this is exactly how it came off. I can't tell any difference. The only thing I know is it's very tight going on. I'll probably have to drive it on with a socket. Let me find something real quick. Okay, I'm just going to take a socket here and maybe I can just tap it down. There. But I don't see any different on the one I've got, so it must have been something they changed at some point. Okay, so everything is good on there. And these were the gears we changed. So all this is wide ratio stuff, so it goes to the side. And this here again this would be a wide ratio later model with the integral washer machined on the counter shaft. So these we can put aside. I just did find, because I've got a lot of these gears, because I do change these quite often, and I guess that was the first one I'd ran into that was different. I thought I had all the same stuff for everything, but that one gear is different if you look it up. And I found some on eBay for like 10 bucks a piece, so I got enough for the other sets that I have in stock already. Okay, so both pieces are assembled, and what I'm going to do here is just set them in there and check the to see that they fit together good. Don't have any issues with that. Okay, you've got to put these together. Oops. Okay, it's kind of hard going into the bearing over there. So just tap it in. Okay, there it is. And I'm just wanting to check to see that the gears, when they line up, and go together, that they do in fact line up. Okay, everything looks pretty decent. Let me get you down here. Okay, this is kind of what I'm looking at here. Just in order to really know for sure, you're going to have to put your shift forks in and everything. But what I was looking for is to see if everything would mesh. And it looks like it does. In particular, the bottom one was what I was concerned about. And everything pretty well looks like it ought to be okay, from what I can tell. So there you go, guys. That's our close ratio install. We still have to install it, so I'll take you along on the ride for that. But as of right now, we've got it built anyhow. Okay, there you have it, guys. We've got our install, or we've got our build-up of the close ratio transmission. I learned something today myself. Every time I do some of this stuff, even though I've been doing it for a long, long time, I'm still learning stuff as I go along. So it's very important to keep your eyes open and look at how things are going together. Measure some stuff once in a while and make sure that they're the same. If you're, for instance, the shafts or something like that, you know, these are the two shafts. This is a wide ratio. This is close. And you just, there's minute differences, but in this case, nothing really makes a difference as far as anything that meshes or goes together. It's just it's a straightforward thing with the shaft, and all you've got to do on the pinion shaft is the install of the second gear, which does require you to press it on. And we learn something every time. We learn something doing that also. It's easier to take a hammer and that little piece of pipe that I made to push it on with and just tap it the last couple of thousandths, whatever you need. Otherwise, it's going to pop. I knew it was going to pop, and it did, and it went too far. And I just put the puller back under it, pulled it maybe one pump back up, and then pushed it back down again, and then tapped it the rest of the way, and that gave me my 4 thousandths clearance. At one point, there used to be a snap ring right here, and the Yamaha book says, starting in October of '70, I think it was, that they no longer installed the snap ring. So if you put that on the older models, if you've got a snap ring, you can just leave that out because they're not using it anymore. But anyhow, and was something else I ran across today. So thanks for going along on the ride, and we'll see you next video.